with the Fiery Cross, as well as Voyager, and the intro of A Breath of Snow and Ashes. Yes, I ran out of hands. So if you haven't read these books or watched the episode yet, please be advised, spoilers are coming. So this week's episode and our novels differ quite a bit. In this episode, we hear Claire's voice, and visually over that we see a sort of recap of some events that happened in the first seasons of Outlander. Now, this monologue comes from the prologue of A Breath of Snow and Ashes. Time is a lot of things people say that God is. There's always pre-existing and having no end. There's the notion of being all-powerful because nothing can stand against time, can it? Not mountains, not armies. And time is, of course, all healing. Give anything enough time, and everything is taken care of. All pain encompassed, all hardship erased. All lost, subsumed. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Remember, man, that thou art dust, and unto dust thou shalt return. And if time is anything akin to God, I suppose that memory must be the devil. Now, with that theme of memory, we see Claire remembering some things from the future that led her back to the past. The title of this episode, Perpetual Adoration, comes from Voyager, pages 32 and 33, where in our novel version, Claire and Frank are actually having a bit of discussion / fight about her going to do her Perpetual Adoration hour, which she does at their church late at night, and she says she likes to go because it's very peaceful, and she always prays for Jamie there, so it's quite beautiful. Now, our show took the Perpetual Adoration in quite a different direction and gave it to a character named Graham Menzies. Graham also appears in Voyager, but even his story is quite different novel to show. Graham Menzies is a patient of Claire's in the hospital in Boston, and he's Scottish, so already Claire and he developed this connection because she, thinks of Scotland and fondly because of Jamie. Now, the show takes this event in quite a different direction. In the show, Graham Menzies actually has gallstones and a very infected gallbladder. So Claire tells him that she's going to have to take it out, and she wants to give him some penicillin to help with the infection. While she runs the test for penicillin allergies, and it comes back okay, she prescribes the penicillin, and then the next day she goes into the hospital and finds out that Graham actually passes away from a penicillin allergy. She's obviously very upset and distraught over this. This ties directly into Claire trying to brew her own penicillin in her surgery on the Ridge. In the novel and the show, she takes some bread, she tries moldy stuff to try to find the right strain of penicillin, and she finally finds it. If you'll recall, the Beardsley twins, Joe and Kezzy, both had very infected tonsils, and Claire thinks they need removed. But they show how cautious in the show she is of using the penicillin broth that she makes because she has Graham in the back of her mind, and she knows that even if it doesn't seem like they're allergic, they still could be. So I like how they show her being very cautious of using the penicillin in the past. Now, the Perpetual Adoration in the show is actually Claire decides to fill in for Graham Menzies' Perpetual Adoration hour. When she's in the hospital talking to him, he's saying, hey, make sure I'm better by, this time on this day so I get in for my Perpetual Adoration hour. So because Claire feels that connection to him, and now that he's passed away, she goes and fills in for his hour at the church. There's a really beautiful moment where Claire is talking to the priest at Graham Menzies' church, and the priest says, no one's really lost who's not forgotten. And so you can tell Claire's thinking about Jamie in that moment, which in our novel, where she does the Perpetual Adoration herself, she always prays for Jamie. Now, in our episode's title card, there were a couple things that you may not have noticed. One is Claire's hand picking up a kind of catalog of modern building ideas, which comes to play in the finale of this season. To be continued. Now, the other moment, I was so pumped when I saw it, because being a fan of these books for so long, I just laughed when I saw it. And it was the novel, The Impetuous Pirate. Now, if you want to read about The Impetuous Pirate, you can look in Voyager, page 208 to 210, and you will get a little exchange of the Impetuous Pirate. Now, with that Impetuous Pirate, we bring back Joe Abernathy, which is definitely a favorite character of mine. I always wish they would even have more moments of him in the show. So I was so stoked to see him back in season 5, and that was just a great moment where, you know, Claire and he have a little, like, you read The Impetuous Pirate? I can't believe you read The Impetuous Pirate. So I just love that moment. In the Fiery Cross, we actually get word that the militia is allowed to stand down when we are in Brownsville. Joseph, Lizzie's father, rides in with a proclamation and basically says, yeah, hey, everyone can go home now. So everyone's really happy about that. In our show, Jamie is actually with Lieutenant Knox, and Knox tells him that Tryon has decided to pardon the regulators. This obviously makes Jamie happy because he's thinking, great, Murtaugh will be pardoned. Okay, I don't have to worry about that anymore. But Knox has other plans. He wants Murtaugh and the regulators taken down. So he tells Jamie that he has petitioned for the prison roll of Ardsmuir Prison. If you'll recall, that's where Jamie was a prisoner after Culloden. So now that Jamie knows that Knox is doing this, he wants to get home. But Knox is like, hey, will you play chess with me one more game? And, oh, just by chance, the prison roll arrives right then and there. And Jamie thinks, all right, well, I gotta call myself out. So he says, you'll find my name on that list. And Knox is like, oh, I'm sure there's a bunch of Jamie Frasers. And Jamie says, yeah, but not ones who are Lord Brock to Rock. So Jamie calls himself out, and then Knox is reading the prison roll, and he finds Murtaugh's name also on this list and sees that he is a Fraser. And so Knox puts together, hey, you're related. And Jamie says, yeah, that's my godfather. So you start to see Knox start to turn on Jamie. Jamie says, you know, look, I have an oath to my country, but I also have an oath to my family. And this is the part where I started to like, what are we doing with the show? Because I feel like Governor Tryon probably already knew that Jamie is an ex-Jacobite pardoned prisoner. And so we have Knox saying he's going to take this prison roll to Tryon, like Tryon wouldn't already know that. And then I feel like it goes too far. We have Jamie and Knox fighting, and then Jamie kills Knox. So I don't know, I did not like that part at all. I felt like it went overboard, went too far with having Jamie feel like he needed to kill Knox just to protect Murtaugh. So I'm not sure if I would have done that way. I don't know, maybe I would have just burned the prison roll and been done with it. I guess I could see why they went that direction, because if, say, Jamie just burned the prison roll, Knox could just get another copy. But, I don't know, I guess Knox turned on him way too fast, so I really didn't like this part of the episode. Now, right after this sequence, I did really love, this is when Jamie finds Ato the Kitten. Jamie's escaping from the house that he's sort of just set on fire to cover up from killing Lieutenant Knox, and he ends up in this alleyway and he sees this little gray kitten, and he wants to take it to Claire. In our book, Jamie actually finds Ato the Kitten much earlier. It is right after the gathering. In our show, we had the gathering take place at Fraser's Ridge, but in our book, the gathering is somewhere else, and Jamie's on the way home. He kind of gets separated and he's ahead of everyone else because the horse is kind of going crazy, and he just finds this little kitten out in the wilderness, and he thinks, wow, this would be a great present for Claire, and it'll help keep the, mice and rats out of her surgery when he gets bigger. So I just love Ato. He's a very adorable little kitten. And there were some additions in our show that I thought were kind of cool. You had Roger and Bree just talking about, maybe we should start McKenzie University. This is sort of similar to something in our book where Bree is basically teaching school to some of the kids on the ridge. But Roger's not teaching with her in the book. To go along with our theme of memory is the devil, we see Roger finding Stephen Bonnet's ruby, diamond, it's hard to tell because it's kind of blackish red, that Stephen Bonnet gives to Bree when she goes to visit him in the prison and try to forgive him. So Roger's going down that path of memory, and he's very upset. And we see this great little scene that's not in the book where Roger and Stephen Bonnet are playing cards. And I just thought it was such a great scene because we typically think Roger is very book smart, but we don't necessarily think of him as street smart. This scene gives us an example of Roger is way more knowledgeable about the world than we may have given him credit for before. It's actually in Drums of Autumn that Roger wants to steal some gems from Stephen Bonnet. So they kind of brought in that element in this scene where Roger and Stephen Bonnet are playing cards and Roger's trying to win that gemstone. So Roger and Bonnet are playing cards, and when Roger turns away to get a drink, Stephen Bonnet puts a different card down that we see from under the table. Roger says, "Hey, didn't you play that card already?" And Stephen Bonnet, kind of looks at him, and we see Roger realizes this is not the man to mess with. So even though he knows that he fair and square should win, he knows it's not worth it, and he's just like, all right, it may have been this other card. And Stephen Bonnet's like, smart man. But I really like that scene. In our show, you have Bree and Roger arguing about this gemstone, and Bree's saying, Stephen Bonnet, he haunts me. I see him everywhere. And so that's kind of their decision to leave, to go back to the future. As long as Jemmy can travel too, Roger realizes, you know what? It's better to just leave, and then Bree won't have to deal with this anymore. In our novel, they haven't decided to go to the future yet at this point. This episode had some things that I did not like Jamie and Lieutenant Knox, but I really loved some of the moments, especially Joe Abernathy reappearing. He's definitely a favorite character in the series of mine, and the impetuous pirate was just hilarious. So for me, this episode had some give and take. Parts I liked, parts I didn't like. But I hope you enjoyed this Outlandish comparison. Please subscribe, turn on your notifications, and I will see you really soon. Was good, all that was fair, all that was